death is an illusion. Death does not exist. And if you do not die before you die, you're more than likely going to have some complications when you die. And we'll get into these complications in this video. So, fear of death. Why are we scared of death? Because it's very important to contemplate on this matter, because all our fears stem from fear of death. All of them, every single one of them. They say that babies have two basic primal fears, and I believe one is the fear of falling, and I can't remember the other one. Fear of falling and something else. But fear of falling is fear of death. I mean, you fall, you die. And the other one is, I don't remember it, but I'm sure you could tie it back to fear of death. So every fear you ever had about everything, about I'm scared of being rejected from this girl, from this guy, right? Well, why? Okay, well, if you break it down, I'm scared of being rejected because if I'm rejected, it makes me question my ability to pass on my genetics. And if I don't pass on my genetics and I don't pass on my bloodline, then how else can I survive? Because then I'll just go extinct. Because then I'm not able to pass on my DNA. Because we think that if we pass on our DNA, that somehow keeps us alive, that keeps us, that it leaves something behind that can go on longer than our limited lifetime on this plane. So, that's the basic instinctive drive to reproduce. It's in a way you're reproducing yourself so you could keep yourself in the game long after you're dead. So then you get rejected and it's like, well, I may never, you just get this, you start to question, am I ever going to pass down my genetics? Am I ever going, it all stems back from fear of death. I gotta pass on my genetics before I die so that I could leave something behind. Fear of death. So then if you're really not scared of death, you don't give a shit about being rejected. You will not give a shit if you're not scared of death, and if you in total acceptance of it, and if you're ready for it. Then what the hell does it mean for you to pass on your genetics? Nothing, absolutely nothing. So every fear you ever had in your life, that you ever have right now in your life, it stems back, it's tied to the fear of death. So what is this? Why are we so afraid of death? Why are we so afraid of dying? Isn't it normal, Saeed, to be afraid of death? We're programmed for survival and reproduction. Are we not, as human beings? Right. Are you a human being? Is that your primary identity, though? That's a central point here. Are you a human? Is that your primary identity? Vivekananda says that the purpose of human existence is to rise above the laws of nature, because you're not of nature. You're just plain human being. You're not, that's not your primary identity. It's like your third identity, fourth, fifth, it's down there. But you got a primary identity, and the primary identity is eternity. You're eternal. You're eternal. It comes down to infinity and finity. That's what it comes down to. So if you're attached to being a human being and that's your primary identity, well, yeah, you're going to be afraid. You're going to be tiptoeing your way through life in fear, all the way, from beginning to end, from start to finish in the dream. You're going to be living in constant fear, because the constant fear is ultimately the fear of death, the fear of perishing. You do not want to perish. So then what we do, because in our absolutely futile attempt to feel important and feel like we're doing something and feel like we're eternal, without actually acknowledging and knowing and realizing that you are eternity itself. So what we do is we do this. We unnecessarily reproduce. We bring children to the world that are absolutely unnecessary to be here to begin with. And we go on being obsessed with accomplishments. So we want to leave something behind, like I'm going to leave something behind. I'm gonna go and win 3 World Cups and 10 best player of the year, and you become an accomplishment freak, obsessed with accomplishments. All attempts to leave something behind, so that when you're dying, you say, well, at least people will remember the 3 World Cups that I won, or they'll remember that I was the best athlete, the best player in the world in my sport, 5 years in a row or 10 years in a row or something like that. Like, actually, by the time you die, if nobody even gives a shit, because the new generation barely even knows who you are. And what it turns out is any accomplishment that you do or anything that you leave behind is quickly swept aside. Quickly. Actually, very quickly. And pretty soon no one remembers you. And if not what if you're like Alexander the Great? You conquered, so we still remember him, and there's a city named after him, that's Alexandria. Well, I would give it another 1,000 years or so. No one's gonna know who Alexander the Great is, if that. Okay, so even if you do something that is like leaving an impact for thousands of years, nobody's gonna remember after that, and it's just gonna get diluted, if anything. So that doesn't work. Leaving children behind, that doesn't work neither, because then your children, the DNA is further diluted and diluted and diluted. Who even knows who you are anymore? So nothing works, it turns out. If you're trying, what does Einstein say? You can't solve a problem from the level of which it was created. If you're trying to solve this problem of being identified primarily as a finite human being, if you're trying to solve it from within the finitude, the finite world, the illusion, the dream, Maya, the world of transience, the impermanent world, if you're trying to solve this problem, tackle it from within the finitude, it's a lost battle. It's going to be a persistent problem for you. You're always going to want to accomplish. You're always going to want to leave something behind. You're always going to have this drive to you become an egomaniac, essentially. It's me. Let me leave as many kids behind. Genghis Khan, right? Goes on a pillage. Wants to conquer the world. He goes on a pillage. He wants to leave as many kids behind. But, that's futile. Because, again, in a few thousand years, probably less, no one's even going to know who Genghis Khan is at all. Like, that name will disappear from the history books altogether. You see, and the DNA keeps getting diluted and diluted and diluted and diluted as you go further and further and further and further. So, it's futile. So you live your entire life not in a state of peace, in a state of seeking, in a state of doing and not being, because you're an egomaniac. You always want to leave accomplishments, something behind, this or that, all to mask your ultimate fear of death. You see, fear of death, fear of perishing. And until you acknowledge that you're infinity, until you acknowledge and realize that you are infinity itself, that you're it, and you've been here forever and you'll always be here forever, until that breakthrough is made directly, experienced directly, lived day to day directly, and persistently and consistently, you're always going to be afraid of death. And you're always going to be trying to do something about it. Do, not be, do. To escape that. It's a form of escapism, actually. Anytime you see yourself obsessed with accomplishments, proving yourself, you're escaping. You're escaping the deep void. So you go external, and you say, well, this is real, isn't it? So I'm going to leave something behind. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Blah 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 blah. But this is a dream. This isn't real. It doesn't exist, and it's transient, and everything's always changing. And another perfect example of that is, I grew up watching a lot of football, aka soccer. I still do. I keep up, watch highlights and stuff. And for example, if a team wins the Champions League, which is the most prestigious trophy in European football, in club European football, and often if next year the team isn't doing well and the coach isn't doing well, the coach could very well get sacked, fired from his job. Well, what happened though? I mean, just last year, just 5 months ago, you won the best trophy, the biggest trophy in club football. And 5 months later, your team is struggling and everybody wants your head. Everybody wants you out. Everybody wants you gone. Because that's the world of transience. It really doesn't matter. Like all this accomplishment, all this shit doesn't matter. You're today's hero, you're tomorrow's zero. Especially now, people have such small attention span. And everybody wants to go to the next rush, to the next thing. All forms of escapism, all trying to solve the problem from within the level of which it was created. And that problem, the love from within the level of which it was created, is again the problem of being identified primarily and solely as a finite being, as a human being. That's the problem. That's the deepest problem here. And so your job becomes to step outside of that and begin to see things differently, and begin to see things from your higher perspective, which is the perspective of you as God, as awareness, as consciousness. And from that level, everything is, because everything goes on forever and you're eternity and it's all infinity, then you relax about the whole thing, because you're like, oh yeah, right, I'm infinity, right. So all these accomplishments I'm trying to do as a human being, they don't matter. Because I'm infinity ultimately. And then, you're just like, all right. So then you just take it easy. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop trying to leave something behind, and you stop seeking. Then you achieve a state of peace. Peace and seeking are mutually exclusive. You cannot be peaceful and seeking at the same time. You cannot be peaceful while trying to prove yourself. I love this in the law of attraction. They tell you like, oh no, you've got to be grateful for what you have, but always seek for more. That can't, it can't. It's mutually exclusive. If you're truly content, there's nothing that you want in this world. Nothing. I mean, true contentment, fulfillment. There is everything. Then the world just comes to you, and everything just becomes a gift that you don't really. You appreciate the gift, but you're not attached to it, whether it's there or not. If you're truly content and fulfilled and peaceful, there isn't a single thing that you desire, that you want in this world. Not food, not sex, not companionship. Nothing. You're pure fulfillment. You're it. You're bliss. Why would bliss want anything else when you're having the ultimate experience? Oh, okay. A lot of people think, because their perception is so limited, that having an orgasm, having sex, an orgasm is the ultimate experience in the ultimate human experience. And that's true in as far as your limited perception, until you begin to experience higher pleasures and higher ways of being, higher states of consciousness. So, if, from that perspective, if you're having an orgasm, why would you want to have anything else in that moment, right? Well, if you're who you are, if you're pure awareness, which is the nature of it is joy and bliss, why would you want anything else? Nothing. Of course, nothing. But then, of course, because again, you're identified with yourself as a finite being, so you're gonna want to prove yourself, leave something behind. You want to have that experience and this experience, and man, wait until you have sex on the beach. Wow, that'll blow your mind, dude. That'll blow your mind. And then you have that, and you're like, well, what's next? All right, let's go have it in the jungle. And then you have that, and you're like, man, I want more experience, more of this, more of that. All forms of escapism, all of it, the whole thing. What you're escaping is you're accepting of death, of this natural process. That things come and things go. Well, what about physical immortality side? You talk about that. You're a big proponent of the breatharian message. You share the knowledge here. You know, you're reading Man's Higher Consciousness and you're sharing it here, and you talk about physical immortality. Right, but the physical immortality is that so you could choose to drop your body, as the Hindus call it, whenever you want. That's physical immortality. Physical immortality means the body can go on forever. Your consciousness, you can go on forever. But at some point, you're going to want to leave your body, believe me. At some point. So, because that's just the nature of creation. Everything comes and goes. At some point, you as consciousness inside your physical body, which is, it can go on forever. It can go on forever. But inside this car that can go on forever is the being that can go on forever, that's creating everything. And so the nature of consciousness playing in its own creation is that it wants to experience, have different experiences. And at some point, you're going to want to drop your body very consciously, like the Hindus do. They do what's known as Mahasamadhi in those circles, and they drop their body because that's just the nature of creation. Infinity wants to experience itself in a multitude of finite things, finite manifestations. But it knows that it's infinity, just having these finite experiences. It knows it. So then realize yourself as infinity, realize yourself as God. Identify primarily with that part of you which goes on forever. That part of you which is peace and contentment and harmony. And the more you become it, the more you be it, the less afraid you are of death. The more playful you are inside this experience. Because if there's, think about it. You're inside a dream, and in the middle of the dream, you realize you're dreaming. Happened to me the other day, and I started flying. You get so playful with it. If it's not serious, if it's not taken serious anymore, because you're gonna wake up. When you wake up, it'll be all right. You'll be in your bed, and it'll be nice and cool, and a new sunny day, right? I was flying the other day. I realized I was in a dream. I was flying, playing inside the dream. That's what you would do too. If you realize that you're inside a dream, if you realize that you're infinity, you'll even be more playful with it. The dream, the ride will be more fun. You'll have more fun. You'll be more joyful. It's no longer taken seriously. You won't be so scared anymore. And that's about it. Thank you to all the Patreons for your consistent support. I appreciate it. And if you would like to support us, spare a couple of bucks a month, you can do so down below in the comments. No, not the comments. I'm too lazy to leave things in the comments. In the description. Okay, so that would be appreciated. You could make one-time donations as well, which I appreciate very much. Shukran. Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, you have a video request or something, it's my name, Saeed Mobayar, and until next time, may the force be with you.